Through 65 games, the Colorado Rockies are leading the NL West, and it is on the strength of our pitching? Yes, you heard that right. The Rockies are currently being held up by their pitching. Something I never thought I'd say, let alone in this year. If we take a look at some of the team rankings across the league, the Rockies are top 10 in the MLB in team ERA with a sub 4 ERA across the board. You can see there the leader, Chase Dollander, on an absolute heater right now. But you look at hits per nine, we are top 5 in baseball in allowing hits, and surprisingly enough, we are top 5 also in allowing home runs. Yes, a Coors Field pitching staff is limiting home runs in the top 5 in all of baseball. Let's see how this staff is getting it done. Chase Dollander pitching in that number 1 spot, is having an absolutely awesome season. ERA just over 3 with a 1.13 whip. Also on a hot streak is Michael Kopech at 3.47 with a 1.31 whip. We have Devin Smeltzer, 3.2 ERA, 1.07 whip, and Sean Jelly, 3.06 ERA with a 1.22 whip. Now, the guy that we had starting in the 5th spot was having a rough season here, Yohan Blanco. We recently swapped Blanco into the long reliever role in favor of Bryce Elder, just having a little bit better of a season. And he's the only guy, though, that will be in our 5-man rotation with above a 4 ERA. Everyone else, Michael Kopech having a really good season here. He's our 2nd worst starter based on his ERA and whip numbers in the pitching staff right now, which is just absolutely wild to see. So today, we're going to have a pitcher appreciation episode. Saw a lot of at-bats, I feel like, in the last episode. We also want to take a look at Jose Beretto, who's currently on a cold streak right now. But I think we take a look at Dollander, we take a look at Beretto, and then we will go ahead and get to the draft preview, maybe a couple of critical situations along the way as well. So we've got a Chase Dollander start here on June 11th, going against the division rival Giants. Let's hop into it. Hitting in the 1 spot for the Giants in this game is Jason Lindsay, probably the best player drafted by one of our division rivals in this series so far, and hitting 270 on the year. So really good center field prospects for San Francisco. But Chase Dollander having himself a really good season as well. Who beats who in this at-bat? It looks like it's going to be Jason Lindsay to start this game. This could be a triple, and it looks like it will be. Not even a throw to third to try to get him. Next up is Ha-Seong Kim. Another deep shot to center field. This one will pass the wall, and just like that, the Giants are already up 2-0. Now, I had some reservations about watching a Chase Dollander start. We all know that throughout this series, he's been somebody, at least for the last 2 seasons and change, who's simulated much better than he's looked when we watched him. And that's coming to fruition here, as this will be a 3rd straight San Francisco hit. Thought he was pitching well enough that we could tune in, watch him in the middle of a hot streak, and it would go well. But so far, it's the opposite. 4 straight have now reached base for San Francisco. That'll bring up Marco Luciano, hitting 350 almost on the year, but goes down swinging for the first strikeout of the game for Dollander. A much-needed out here. Hernandez, another base knock, a couple of little weakly hit singles for San Francisco, but it brings home a 3rd Giants run of the 1st inning. Nightmare start for Chase Dollander. Gets Luis Toribio to swing on that. And A much needed 6-4-3 double play to get out of the inning. Still though, 3 on the board in the inning is not the kind of start you want to see from Dollander. 4 hits and a walk allowed in the inning. So can Dollander rebound from a terrible first inning, or is it just going to be one of those days where he doesn't have it? Liner here to deep center field is hauled in by Cerny for the first out of the second. Wisely hits it again to deep center field. Jogging after it is Logan Cerny. Couple of balls decently well struck by the Giants, but with a grounder there from Lindsay already back up in the second, it'll be a clean 1-2-3 inning. We see some Giants fans hoping for some home run balls hit into the bay. Ha-Seong Kim hits this one deep to right field. Might be a triple as well, but no, he'll settle for the double here. 2 for 2 star for Ha-Seong Kim. Having a nice day against Chase. Morales lifts it to Jordan Beck for the first out. Sayball diving play by Figueroa will get him out with Dollander covering the bag. Who says first base defense doesn't matter? Not saying Omar Figueroa is an elite defender by any means, but a great effort play there. I think he has good enough defense for first base for sure. Let's see that one more time. Good hustle by both Dollander and Figueroa on that play. We'll make it 2 outs here. Luciano back up. And a nice throw from Sterling Thompson will end the third cleanly. So, only 1 hit in the second and the third, and he got through those 2 innings at about 20 or so pitches. Unfortunately, he threw 20 in the first inning alone, so in terms of his pitch count here, not looking like he'll be able to go very deep in this game, especially if he starts to allow some base runners here. And he's going to do one again with Luis Toribio, so back-to-back singles. Put the Giants back in scoring position here, but a really big 4th inning by the Rockies does have us in the lead. Courtesy of a 2-run homer by Murillo in that last inning, and a second double play of the game. Very much needed once again. Been a couple of jams that Dollander has been able to get out of with some double plays, but still needs 1 more out in the inning. Full count pitch will be a walk for Wisely. Second walk allowed by Dollander here. But then he gets Jason Lindsay, looking at the fastball inside. 5-3 Rocky lead. Chase coming back out here for the 5th, and he gets Ha-Seong Kim swinging. Kim's had his way with Dollander up to this point in the game, but Chase able to pay back just a little bit with the strikeout there. Morales, he has a hit in this game, and here he picks up another with a single to center field. Another one of the generated players, the drafted players on this Giants MLB roster. It's nice to be the point in the franchise that you see some of those. I feel like I say that every time we play the Giants. They're one of the few teams that we play that actually do start some drafted players. But Omar Figueroa covers first, and that's 4 straight scoreless innings pitched by Chase. So was hoping that he could, rebound from a bad start, and that he did. The Rockies would end up victorious. Chase would just pitch the 5 innings. When you have a bad start like that, it's hard to pitch deep into a game just because the pitch count gets high. But overall, not a terrible start from Chase in the end. Next up, we're going to take a look at Jose Beretto. Now, I will say this is from a previous game. This one was recorded in a May start for Jose Beretto. I recorded it and meant for it to be part of last episode's gameplay, but it just turned out that the episode ended up being would have been a little bit too long had we included the Jose Beretto start. So here we get it in this episode instead. So this is prior to his cold streak that we saw that he was going through at the top of the episode. Infield fly to second base will make it 2 gone here to start the game for Jose. Going against Kyle Schwarber. Definitely not somebody you'd expect to be in the minors, but this deep into the future, maybe that could be the case, and almost got that one to leave the park, but Brian Doe gloves it. Steven Cruz up next. One of the higher level prospects in the Padres organization, and a great first pitch strike there from Jose. Isotopes put up 3 early runs to give Beretto some wiggle room here, and this one is cracked off the bat of Steven Cruz, and it's gone. Just a line drive homer for Cruz's 4th homer of the year, which at this point, I think it was either early May or maybe even late April, but I'm pretty sure it was a May start here for Jose. So 4 home runs isn't as bad as it seems, as if it was, mid-June, like the Dollander start was from. But Steven Cruz showing off the pop on that hit. This pitch going to be lifted deep to right field for Clemente Herrera, who catches it on the warning track. Beretto's already given up a home run and was kind of close to giving up 2 more with a couple of warning track shots here, and a beautiful curve for the second out of the inning. That one was nasty. Howell up next. This one will get down in center field. Brian Doe cuts it off to hold it to a single. That'll bring up the 8th hitter here for the Chihuahuas, and a generous call for strike 3 on that one. Just 2 hits allowed so far. One of them just so happened to be a home run. Full count for Barstad here, and strike 3 looking on the fastball high. This guy, even dating back to spring training earlier this year, when we watch him, the dude strikes hitters out, and that should have been another one. What? How do you call that a walk? That entire ball was inside the zone, but maybe we can make up for it here on a double play, but no! A terrible throw from second base. And it's going to instead just be a fielder's choice. How do you miss this throw, man? This one almost hits Jose as it goes right back up the middle. So will the terrible throw from second cost us in the inning, and at least cost Jose an extra hit allowed? But he's ahead of Steven Cruz here, 0-2, and gets him swinging on the slider. Another strikeout for Jose Beretto. He doesn't strike out a lot of people in simulation, as he shouldn't, because that's his weakest per 9, but he has got some awesome strikeout stuff whenever we watch him. Back up in the 4th, and that should have been a strikeout again. He got that one generous call, but this umpire is all over the map. How are you calling that one strike a strikeout, but then all these others that are clearly in the zone, and he allows another walk? So Jose Beretto's allowed 2 walks, but we know he's actually not allowed 2 walks at all. It's just the umpire being dumb. Should actually have 2 additional strikeouts on the board. Instead, maybe a little bit of a miss there, but Zavala hits it right at Clemente Herrera. One-two pitch for Howell, 1-for-1 in this game. And it's a curveball again. That curve's gotten a couple of nice strikeouts here in this game. He's locating it well. And here's the changeup, low and outside for another strike 3 looking. Here in the 5th, Barstad lifts it to foul territory, hauled in. Over in left field. Top of the order back up for the Chihuahuas. popped up to Ritter as shortstop. Had to take a bit of a journey over to Holiday. Rosario swinging at the low pitch. Easy ground out. Gets him through a clean fifth. And so far, still just the one home run allowed. Steve Cruz strikes out again. So a homer and 2 strikeouts for the highly rated San Diego prospect in this game. Chopper over to short. Ritter. Throw on the run is in. And the 6th clean inning for Beretto. He will come out for the 7th. I can't blame him despite the fact that his pitch count is in the 80s. He's just been so incredibly good since allowing that early home run. Gets the first out here in the 7th. Needs to be pretty dang efficient in this inning though, just with his pitch count, but instead gonna allow a hit there. Was just a 1 pitch at bat though, so won't extend his inning too much, but this 3-2 count will. Fortunately, it will be in for the 2nd out. Going against the bottom of the order here. Wanted a clean inning from Beretto, and for the most part, we got it. As a first pitch swing in here, an infield fly will get Beretto 7 innings with just 1 run allowed. An excellent start, striking out a ton of batters. And the Chihuahuas would ultimately win this game 3-1 with a save courtesy of Cole McCracken's, his 11th of the year. Do want to get at least 1 critical situation in here for the episode, and due to time constraints, this will be the only one. Here's a snapshot of where the team is at, and again, surprisingly enough, except for strikeouts where we are pretty terrible as a pitching staff, our pitching is doing much better than our hitting this year. Sterling Thompson up to the plate. He's got a chance to walk this game up. Hitting .379 with runners in scoring position is really good. Has 3 hits in this game already. Can Sterling Thompson end this game? Getting out of the count, and if he can maybe even draw a walk here, that would bring up Rafael Murillo. We've seen him, of course, show up in big moments in this series as well. But 2 outs here, not any room for error. Need either a hit to win or a walk to extend. But a couple of strikes will even up the count. That was a beautiful circle change by Luis Frias here. This one will be softly hit to short, and we're headed to extras in Colorado. Ethan Salas would get a chance here to walk it off once more. Bottom of the 10th, and another critical situation from the same game. I like that feature here in MLB The Show. Salas 1 for 4 so far in this game. Was off to a really rocky start to this season, but has started to turn things around a bit. He's ahead of the count. Frias still on the mound for Oakland. He's thrown 52 pitches in this ball game. Salas hits this one deep to center field. And with a runner on third, it should be enough to score and secure the Rockies win. Sterling Thompson scores from third, and Salas, sacrifice fly, wins the game for the Rockies in the 10th inning. And there's the boys celebrating. A nice way to wrap up the gameplay portion of the episode and get us ready for the final draft preview. Knew it the second it left his bat that one was going to win this game. That's exactly what it did. Rockies extend their division lead. That will bring us to the final week of scouting, and thus a week away from the MLB draft. And it's time to give you my final thoughts on this draft class. As you can see, we're going to use this last week to try to discover any last minute players, as well as scout the last 2 of the top 10 ranked closers. And I gotta be honest with you guys. I know I've said this in the past, we've ended up with good classes, but this class I am genuinely worried for. And that's because, you know, yeah, we've had a closer, top-heavy draft at the top last time, but even after scouting, we have a very closer-heavy class. Now, I'll get to those closers in a minute. They're really good this year, but I'm kind of hoping to get more than some bullpen arms in a class, and after that is where this draft really falls apart. We did get one really good discovery player in Chip Howe, but I just got to tell you, Chip Howe and Phil Gorzelski here, the closer, and one really good starter, which of course is very valuable. These are the only guys we discovered this year. No good discovery position players, none that were even worth scouting, if I'm being honest. Some looked okay, but they just weren't going to be very good offensive players, so I didn't even bother scouting any of the guys we discovered. Just a terrible position player discovery class, which really, I think, caps the ceiling on a class. When you see these really great classes that we've had in the past, it's because we've been able to get really good position players down the board. That's not going to be the case in this year's class, unfortunately. So, discovery Chip Howe, he's the best starting pitcher in the class. That includes both discovered and non-discovery players. Wasn't a great position starting pitcher class either, which you combine a not great starting pitcher class with a not great discovery class for position players, and you're having yourself a very questionable class, which is why this year, more than really any other year, I am very worried about how good of a draft we're going to have. We're going to have a little luck. We do have 3 top 40 picks, so that should help. But again, when you're lacking in discovery and position players and starters, we're lacking in pretty much everything except for closers. I think we might not have a great class. But let's get back to Chip Howe here. Walk score 9 really high. That could really help him simulate well. Gonna have good stamina, which you love to see. Velocity will be fine. Throws 4-seamer, 2-seamer, changeup, curve. You gotta have a pretty decent starting overall. Has a really good chance to actually start in the 70s overall. So you love to see that. At least, you know, mid-B potential, if not higher than that. So there's certainly a guy I'd be willing to take as high as probably 40 in this class is where his range starts to come. I'd love to get him at 80 though. And then you get to the position players. There are 4 position players that I scouted that are actually, you know, good, but I don't think any of them are going to have A potential. In fact, you can guarantee it with Geraldo Feliz. The good thing about them, though, is with the exception of Parsons, these 3 players, I have a pretty good feeling they could be 70s overall to start. Maybe with Ramirez, they'll be high 60s. But going first with Geraldo Feliz, first off, we don't even know if he'll make it to 3 because he is the #1 ranked MLB prospect. Yeah, you're getting guaranteed B potential, but you're also getting guaranteed at least 74 overall, which means this guy can come in and play quickly if we need him to. Can also be somebody that will be seen very highly by other teams, so that I think he'll be a good trade piece if we decide to go that way. Just because, you know, we might not have room in the outfield for him. At this point, it's questionable if we have room really anywhere, but still, of course, going to just draft talented players and let the best players win out. A better hitter against lefties than he is against righties. We have a few players that you could say that for, so I don't love that aspect about it. But still going to be good against righties. Going to have both contact and power in the 60s. Vision going to be high 40s, low 50s. Discipline going to be in the 60s. And then against lefties, he'll have high 60s, low 70s stuff. So that's really good. Fielding is going to be solid in the 60s. Accuracy and reaction will be okay, high 40s, low 50s kind of stuff, but it'll have some decent speed, have some decent stealing. He's just a really well-rounded skill set here. Now, just because of what we know about MLB The Show, I'd have to imagine he comes in on the low end of his rating, so I think he's going to be a 74 or a 75, but that's still really good for sure. And I think maybe not exactly what you'd want, you know, 84 or 85 potential player. You don't necessarily want that in the top 3, but that might be as good as it gets if you don't want to draft a closer, which I don't at number 3 overall. There are going to be some sick closers, like I said, and I'll talk about them in a minute. Juan Ramirez is a catcher. Of course, we don't need catcher. We have Ethan Salas, but I think he could play. We could add, maybe a left field to him, or maybe a third base if he ends up on the high end of his ratings, because that speed's pretty low. But I think we can add a secondary position to him for sure without any trouble. He's an 18-year-old, still young. You could teach a young dog some new tricks. So taking a look at his skill set, another guy who's going to hit lefties better than righties, just something that we see an awful lot of. His vision won't be great, likely going to be in the 40s, almost guaranteed to be in the 40s. Discipline could be high 40s, low 50s, maybe even reach mid 50s if this guy is towards the top end of his ratings. He is better against lefties, but will still, I think, hit solidly enough against righties. And then he's going to be an asset in the field. He's going to have a really strong arm, which is what is making me think corner outfield or third base as a secondary for him. And then the beautiful part about him is he can be our backup catcher option, which would mean we wouldn't have to dedicate a second, actual catcher to the team. And, just for someday down the road, Drew Roma's going to be asking for a contract, and I don't really love the idea of paying a catcher-only backup catcher, and so if we could have somebody that can play catcher but also can play some other spots on the field for us, I think that would be valuable. 18 years old here, one of 2 18-year-olds that we'll be talking about actually is, so the other 3 players. So Raul Feliz is 22, the other 3 guys are 18. Rico Salazar here, that overall range 65 to 80, you do really like. Potential though, very unlikely to be an A. He has to be about as good as he can be, and the fact that he'd also have to be like 80 overall to do that makes me pretty confident he won't be. But this could be a guy you could absolutely see being like 72 with 84 potential. Again, not great, but it's about as good as you're going to get in this class. That's just the reality of it. He is a switch hitter, something we don't have a lot of in the organization. I think Neil Dorsey and Benji Avalos. Benji Avalos is a lefty. I thought we added another switch hitter, but it's Raymond Park. So don't have a lot of switch hitters. So Rico Salazar would add that, another guy with a pretty decent arm for the outfield. He can play second base, so a little bit more position flexibility than a lot of the guys that we're going to talk about. And so I like a Rico Salazar, a pretty well-rounded skill set. I mean, everything is projected except for vision to be at least in the 50s probably for this player. Maybe reaction as well, but contact versus left might end up in the 40s. But overall, I think a really well-rounded skill set that could develop into a starting caliber player eventually, switch hitter, which I like. Now, Danny Parsons has the farthest to go, and definitely his game is more kind of Brian Doe-ish, I would say, where he has defined strengths and weaknesses. He's also guaranteed to start, at the maximum in the 60s. He has a 0% chance of being in the 70s unless he just outplays his projections altogether. The reason I like a Danny Parsons, though, is because he offers a skill set that we're really looking for. We have yet to find that exciting leadoff caliber hitter on this team that combines the plate skills, the contact, the speed, and the base running. Danny Parsons does offer that. What he does not offer at all is defense. And so, do you want to offer a DH spot to a guy who can't really hit for power? Do you want to put a guy in a field that just is absolutely terrible at it? Certainly not going to play shortstop, that's for dang sure. But he offers the skill set that I feel like we're missing, while everybody else, we're talking about just kind of well-rounded skill sets, maybe not as high of strengths as Danny Parsons, but they certainly lack the weaknesses that he has as well. So if we decide to go position player, which, because I think 3 is the only spot in the draft that we're going to be able to take a single position player, I genuinely think 35 through 170 all are going to be either closers or starters. So I'm still leaning heavily towards number 3. I want to add at least one position player in every class. Always be retooling there. I think we got a lot of guys. I think Feliz and Ramirez probably fit better in the outfield. I think Salazar fits well as a left fielder or a second baseman. Parsons, who knows where he plays defensively, you know? So that's what we got there. Let me know what you think of these 4 players, who we should prioritize out of them. Now let's talk about the bullpen, because this is an insanely strong bullpen class. The downsides that come with not having good starters and position players is made up some for the fact that this is an awesome reliever class. So much that I am really honestly banking on taking one at both 35 and 40. I hope that one still remains at 40. Not only do we have closers, but we have a couple of relievers. In fact, Marcos Esposito, I do want to actually, I totally glossed over him. I think we need to scout him. I think we'll do him instead of Freeland, just because Freeland's 19 years old. We won't get too high of a percentage. So is Esposito, but because he's not ranked, he has a chance to fall a little bit in the class. So I'd rather get the scouting on him, whereas a guy like Freeland, he's going to go in the top 40 of this class 100%. So a little bit of a last minute shift here. But these bullpen arms, I mean, Blanco, guaranteed at least 72 overall. Hayes, guaranteed at least 78 overall. Gorzelski, guaranteed at least 79 overall. Guaranteed 70s with a guaranteed at least mid to high B potential. That's some pretty awesome MLB ready bullpen. And our bullpen hasn't actually been that bad for us, but if we could get some really strong bullpen arms that we've got under contract for cheap for 6 seasons, I'm down for it. Add that to Julio Gomez and Omar Santiago. Santiago, gonna be a guy that's more gonna come in the 60s with B potential. Really good strikeout pitcher for him though. Loves the slider, but I still think I would be willing to take him with one of the top 40 picks. And then Julio Gomez, another guy guaranteed at least 73 overall with 79 potential. Now, if he comes in on the low end, that's not great, you know, 73 and 79. But if he can come in towards the higher end, then that's really good. What I really like about him is that he's a guaranteed at least 82 strikeouts and 84 walks. That's a pretty nuts combo. Now, he's not going to throw very hard, unfortunately, but his per nines look absolutely wicked, man. Wicked. So I think we have 5, could be 6 or 7, honestly, depending on how these guys look after they're scouted. Really awesome closers. Now, can one of them last till 40? I think if anybody's got a chance to do it, it'll be Phil Gorzelski, just because he's a discovery guy. But if we can get one of these guys to last till 40, and so we can get a position player at 3, closers at 35 and 40, or just bullpen arms in general, and then after that we can kind of just wing it. Honestly, I gotta be honest, I'm hoping Chip Howe makes it to 80. My dream draft, I'll say right now, is taking one of these position players at 3, taking a closer or a reliever at 35 and 40, taking Howe at 80, and then 110, 140, 170. We're just honestly winging it because there's not a lot of great in this draft class. Another discovery pitcher, Diego Soto. We could draft him later in the draft, but I mean, that overall range is pretty terrible. But you know, once you're getting outside of the top 100, you'll take the long-term projects. And just not a lot of, you know, values down the board here. Mac Moses. Our nines look awful, but we get him in one of our last picks. There are options. I'm not saying nobody's there. Archer Goff, we didn't end up scouting. Probably worth a scout, or maybe just a late round flyer if he's still there. But just not a lot of great options, I'll say, down the board. So I don't think it's going to be one of those classes that at the end we look at it and it just looks absolutely insane, you know, with a bunch of high potential, a bunch of guys in the 70s, unless I can get kind of my dream scenario of position player at 3, 35 and 40, and then Chip Howe at 80. We have a chance of getting 4 players that all are starting it in the 70s, which would be pretty dang good, I must say, for a draft class this late. Of course, you're always looking for a potential, but if we can get a bunch of MLB ready guys that maybe not have quite as high of a ceiling as we've gotten in previous classes, I think that would really help the franchise at this point, where, you know, we're not necessarily wanting guys that are going to take 4 years plus to make it, just because we're looking to compete before that window. But that will pretty much do it for my thoughts on the draft. Let's take a look now at where the team stats are for the team that is still first in the division. I am honestly shocked that we've been so good this year. I thought we were still a year away. Said that a couple episodes ago, that I just didn't think this team was super good. We need to maybe start slowing down a little bit this season. I keep waiting for this team to fall down and play to its ratings, but it continues to impress, man. 52 wins, leading the division. Let's see how we're getting it done. Rafael Murillo at the top, of course, batting over 300, already in the 20s in his home runs. We know what this guy is. His OPS is over 1,000 this year. His WAR is on track to be closer to 2026 than it was 2027. Ethan Salas, he had a really rough start to the year, but he's starting to turn things on a bit. Still losing some contact, but is against righties, but his contact against lefties is a major boon. He's somehow, I don't know why, but everybody loves to hit against lefties in this franchise, even our lefty batters. Chase Dollander, he started to cool down a little bit. Of course, we saw that he had low 3s at the start of the episode, but he's not doing as much, while Michael Kopech continues to just be a stud, man. +5 home runs per 9. You love to see it. By far his best year since he's been with us. He was more of a 1.5 whip guy his first 2 years, down to 1.2 this year. Jose Beretto, 304, 1.21 whip. Is losing home runs per 9, which I don't love. Of course, love for him not to be doing that, but even still, he has several per 9s in the 70s. I think he's really getting ready to be called up. Same could be said of Clemente Herrera here. I think he is ready for a call up and will likely be a September guy. Kyle Brown, up to 282 so far, doing better against righties, is losing contact against lefties. Everybody's doing the opposite of what you would think they would do, it feels like, on this team all the time. They're better at hitting against the pitchers that they probably shouldn't. Zach Veen, 21 homers, tied for the team lead, +6 power versus righties. He's mashing some of those right-handed pitchers. This is a guy that after last year I was saying, I don't know if we can trust this guy long term. He's having a little bit of a breakout campaign. Zach Veen. Tip your cap to him. Positive WAR player. Already a career high in WAR, and hopefully he can get that to continue to climb. Brian Doe on a cold streak, down to a 255 average, but still comfortable with these ratings to keep him at the leadoff spot. He's hitting better in the leadoff spot than he was in the 4 spot, so I'm going to keep him there. A lot of these ratings are getting in the 50s. Contact versus right now in the 50s. Vision now in the 50s. Discipline now in the 50s. Arm strength is 1 away from the 50s. So I think Brian Doe is getting close. Again, I said it a couple episodes, a lot of these guys are just around the corner. Sterling Thompson, not hitting well against lefties, no surprise there. Not doing much against righties either. 256, not terrible. 9 homers, already matched what he did last year. OPS, very similar. Just a defender. He's a defender first at this point. Cerny, 4 home runs, 250 average. Another guy who's a defensive specialist. Let's take a look at Neil Dorsey now. 3.24 ERA, 107 whip at AAA as a pitcher. Going up across the board here. Home runs per 9 is in the 50s at least. If you're telling me that this guy can get hits per 9 and walks per 9 both in the 70s by the time September rolls around, I think we call him up. Particularly because he's mashing at AAA. 26 homers already, OPS near 1,000, and +7 power versus lefties. Yeah, this guy needs to call up, and I think September's calling him. Just want us as much of a boost as we can get to the pitching as we can before that rolls around. Figueroa hitting 300. You'll love to see it. Yeah, absolutely love to see it. Hoping for a little bit more power, I'd say, for sure. I thought he had like 10 home runs to start this episode. We simulated more than a month. He's gotten 1 homer since. Hence the power not going up at all for him this year. Hopefully he can turn the power back up. Jelly Man pitching really excellently for us. 3.01 ERA, 1.24 whip. Much improved over last year. Really, a home runs per 9 is what he's gotten a lot better at. Smeltzer, been really good consistently for us, but this is his best year so far. Just kind of across the board, the pitching has been performing well above expectations. James Ungerer doing really well in simulation. I think he's close enough to a call up here. Want some of these per 9s to reach the 60s, I'd say. If we can get strikeouts and walks in the 60s, we'll start to consider that one. Rich Walsh has really settled in. Started to do much better. We saw that he had 6 blown saves back when he had 9 saves. So he's 13 straight saves, now 75 overall. Let's get this guy up to AAA. 75 overall already as a closer. We need some... we need to see him rise up the ranks a bit quickly here, as long as he's proven that he can actually perform. Mauri Lozano had a terrible start. Still not going great, but it's going better than it was at the beginning of the year. Jeff Ramirez really similar to last year, I'd say. Herb Reyes actually struggling. Usually he's been so great for us in simulation, but not so much this season. Starting to slow down a bit. Antonio Hernandez doing well. Really just, why can't you get your hits per 9 up a little bit, my guy? I wish his hits per 9 were progressing faster. Juan Rocha up to 267 average. The dude's smashing lefties, but he can't hit righties apparently. He's hasn't developed at all against righties, +1 contact but -1 power. Against lefties though, he's gotten a lot of boosts. All right, Benji Avalos, let's take a look at him. Not developing a ton, but his play skills are going up. +3 division, +2 to clutch. I'll take it. Cortez gonna hit lefties well. Ralph Gilmore here, one of the bigger surprises from last class. Slowly developing along. His hits per 9 is already 70, which you'll love to see. Gregorio Dominguez up to a 66 overall. Again, a righty that's developing better against righties than he is lefties. Strange, man. It's happening all throughout the organization this year. Benoit, solid developments from him. And Raymond Park should be just going up pretty steadily across the board, and that he is. Got one more guy. Eric Suzuki, another guy in single A. But that's pretty much it for all the high-profile players in the organization. I need to remove somebody. We're gonna have Steven Jones go down to AA here, so we have the right amount of players in all the rosters. And that's gonna pretty much wrap up all I've got for the episode. Again, let me know what you're thinking from this next draft class. Maybe who some of your favorites are, especially who you prefer among the position players and the closers, because that's really what's gonna be the decisions in this class, if I'm being honest. But we'll be back soon with the draft, and I'll see you then. Go Rockies.